Welcome to A Book with Bubble Tea. With your host, Mira He. Here, I share takeaways from East Asian books on parenting, startups, and self-growth. Seeking insights beyond the typical English shelf? Want to be a better parent and achieve more in life? You're in the right place. Grab your bubble tea and let's dive in. Welcome to East Asia this week from A Book with Bubble Tea. I'm your host, Mira. How's everyone doing? Today, we are going to talk about a healthcare issue heating up in South Korea, where a massive doctor strike made headlines around mid-February 2024, and it's still ongoing. I'm sure you have seen and read a lot about it from the news, but if you haven't, this is what happened. And now the South Korean government has threatened to revoke doctors' licenses and even imprison those on strike if they don't return to work by this coming Thursday. Well, by the time you listen to this, the deadline has already passed, but I recorded it on Tuesday, so we'll see what happened on Thursday. What happened exactly? Well, it all started with the government's plan to tackle a looming doctor shortage issue in South Korea. They proposed increasing the number of medical students by nearly 67% from 3,000 to 5,000 a year, aiming to add 10,000 more doctors by 2035. This idea was to prepare for an aging population and ensure everyone gets the medical attention they need. Particularly, if you consider South Korea's doctor to 1,000 patients ratio is only 2.5, which means like 1,000 patients only get 2.5 number of doctors. It's one of the lowest amongst OECD countries. It's no surprise that this plan actually got a thumbs up from most folks in South Korea. A poll showed 76% of people were all for it, hoping it would fix long waits and hard-to-reach medical care, especially outside big cities like Seoul. But not everyone was on board. Nearly 7,800 young doctors and interns, making up about 70% of their group, said, "No thanks," and they went on strike. In total, more than 9,000 doctors refused to come into work, and about 10,000 have submitted resignations at hundreds of hospitals across the country. And this was reported by BBC's on 27th February 2024. They worried the healthcare system is already stretched thin, and this plan of the government simply increasing the number of medical students will not fix the real issues. So, what's a big concern here? Well, South Korean doctors are feeling the heat. They're among the busiest in the world, with some pulling 36-hour shifts. That's way longer than their counterparts in places like the US, where a shift might last less than 24 hours. So 36-hour shift versus 24-hour shift. You can see the great contrast here. So if they're so overworked and short-staffed, isn't it a good thing to have more doctors? Well, yes, generally, if all the doctors are paid the same, and most of the hospitals are public hospitals, but Korean actually has a different system. Korean system has bigger problems than that. For starters, South Korea's hospitals are mostly privately owned. This setup means there is a big push for profits. Doctors are paid based on the number of patients they serve, meaning that, for those work which attract less patients, like pediatrics, gynecology, then those doctors, they usually get paid less. And worse, the hospitals might even retrench the number of doctors or facilities provided to those practices, which lead to the remaining doctors either overworked or, feeling completely underpaid, which push those doctors furthermore to disciplines, to practices that they can actually earn money, like doing plastic surgeries or, dermatological clinics. And that just add up to the vicious cycles of more doctors leaving the necessary practices. They feel distressed, they feel distressed, and then they feel they're completely underpaid. And there is also a big city versus small town issue too. Most doctors flock to urban areas, leaving rural spots with fewer hands on deck. And, with fewer doctors available, fewer facilities available in the rural areas, that will also push the patients to go to hospitals, bigger hospitals in the cities more. And that creates another vicious cycle. So the rural areas get less and less doctors, and the patients are all crowded to big hospitals. And in the big hospitals, it depends on the practices that you serve. You might have some doctors that are severely underpaid, and they are doctors who are being paid more. But nonetheless, because of this, system that the doctors get paid per number of patients they serve, which has created a huge inequality issue in South Korea's medical system. The striking doctors argue that just adding more students won't fix the imbalance of doctors across practices and areas they face. They are calling for a better distribution of doctors across different specialties and regions, plus improvements in pay and work conditions. They also want more support to handle legal risks and less reliance on doctors to keep hospitals running on tight budgets. I mean, if you think about it, there are certain practices that you just get sued more often, right? Like emergency room, surgical, those things are usually in higher risk. And then if you pay less or if you are underpaid, but then you have to bear higher risk, then obviously doctors will prefer to work in easier practices. This standoff has put a spotlight on the pressure facing doctors in South Korea and sparked a national debate on how to provide quality healthcare for everyone, no matter where they live. However, adding to the complexity, we cannot forget about the personal interests are also at play as well. Doctors are concerned that an increase in medical students could lead to more competition and potentially lower salaries. Because remember, they are paid by per patient, right? And since the hospitals' majority are private hospitals, so the doctors, their relationship are more like competitions. Even within the same hospitals, they will be competing with each other for patients. So having more medical students actually means it saturates the number of patients available per doctor, which means that their salaries will be undermined. So that is the personal interest of the doctor's side. And on the political front, President Yoon Suk-yeol also has his reason for sticking to the plan, possibly to boost his approval rating amidst personal and political challenges, especially from the bribery scandal from his wife. His firm stance certainly has added fuel to the fire. But beyond politics and professions, there is human involved. And reports of patients dying because they couldn't get the care they needed are a stark reminder of what's at stake. There has been a news on an old age woman. She died because 7 hospitals refused to admit her due to lack of staff and shortage of beds, and she eventually died on arrival to the last hospital. I really think the South Korean government needs to pay more attention to addressing the root cause of the issue. So I do think simply adding more medical students probably won't solve the issue because the issue lies in distribution and then the pay system for doctors. However, doctors also need to consider their actions and at what cost because, who knows whether they can win or not win. But one thing we know for sure is there are already patients dying due to lack of the medical care needed. I don't know whether there is such thing or maybe there should be such a thing like to cap the number of percentage of doctors being on strike. Perhaps that will raise enough alarm but not overstretch the medical services that currently are in need to provide to patients. So that's it for today. Thank you for listening to East Asia This Week, brought to you by A Book with Bubble Tea. Let's continue to enjoy our bubble tea and learn together. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and YouTube. Until next week, bye!